"Oh!" Nate yelled as he stepped in something wet. "Again!" He wrinkled his aristocratic nose in disgust, lifted his foot, and noticed he had stepped in a fresh puddle, spreading like a shallow lake under his bedroom door. "What an icky creature!" he snarled, kicking off his dirty socks and tossing them on the floor for the maid to clean up. "It acts like it has 9 lives. Well, I'll show it a lesson. It'll remain with only 1 life, I'll make sure of that." The guy rushed to the first floor of the mansion, leaping over steps. In the small living room, he found the insolent, red-haired animal with white patches on its coat. The cat was nestled cosily on the carpet by the old fireplace, as if hoping someone would light a fire to warm itself. Nate knew he would find this red-haired monster here. This room, smelling of wood and wool, was where Nate's father and his so-called stepbrother Kyle loved to spend the winter evenings. Kyle was as red as the cat, and they were always lying here, when this furry nuisance was just a small ball of fluff. Kyle used to read books, work on his laptop or sketch in his notebook, sitting on the floor as if the house had no chairs, and the cat used to bask at his side, purring loudly. Nate remembered how this troublesome duo had first appeared. It was a rainy grey autumn day, with red-leafed trees outside. Young Nate sat in his room, pretending to study literature. Whether the novel failed to interest him, or the weather made him drowsy, he kept yawning, his eyes sliding over his book. Bored and listless, he suddenly stood and looked out the window, as if sensing something. He spotted his father's car. His parents finally return after a sudden trip somewhere. The black fancy car stopped at their mansion's entrance. His father and mother stepped out, followed by someone else. His mother helped a small, puny figure climb out. Nate pressed his palms against the cold glass, straining to see more, but the evening darkness denied him a clear view. Abandoning his lesson, the boy ran out to meet his parents. He froze in the hallway as he watched his mother helping another boy remove his coat. She spoke to him in her soft, cooing voice. "You'll have your own room, Kyle." Lorraine smiled at the child. "It's on the 2nd floor. We haven't had an opportunity to renovate it yet. It was meant for guests, but I think that's even better. You can decorate it to your taste. From there you have a beautiful view of the garden. Though it's not as lovely in late fall as in summer or winter, you'll like it. Are you hungry from the road? Would you like anything special? Our cook will gladly make whatever you'd like." The boy mumbled something under his breath. The man and woman exchanged meaningful glances over his head, sharing some private understanding. Nate, lurking in the distance, studied the guest. The child seemed strange to him, entirely different from his friends. Yet the boy reminded Nate of someone vaguely, but who? He was thin, pale, with huge eyes. His forehead, visibly beneath unkempt red bangs, bore a reddish scar with jagged edges. Nate immediately wanted to touch it, to know where it came from, though he was even more curious about where the boy himself had come from. The answer came quickly. Noticing his son, Donovan, his father, made an inviting gesture. The boy was afraid of his father, who was a strict man, and he immediately approached his parents. Dad's palm, which seemed heavy and huge to the children, rested on his thin shoulder and pulled him closer. "Nate, meet Kyle. He'll be our son now, and your brother. Mum and I got custody of him." "What do you mean, a brother?" the boy gasped, hating the idea. He knew a couple of friends who had siblings. Nothing good came of it. They had to share their parents' attention, gifts, toys, rooms, everything. Paul Bergin said when he grew up he would get nothing. His father's company would go to his older brother. Nate had been raised from childhood knowing he was his father's heir, the future of their family. He thought he was some kind of prince. And now what? Share the throne with some ragamuffin? Oh no. It should be said that although Nate's parents tried to raise him properly, and they loved him dearly, he was still a very spoiled boy. Being as smart as his father, the boy understood how life worked from an early age. By 4, the boy had grasped the art of manipulation. Though he hadn't yet understood its essence, he intuitively recognized the connection between his actions and people's reactions, and began to exploit it. He loved the advantages this brought. He could evoke pity, pretend to be sick or tired to get what he wanted. His favourite dessert, watching cartoons, skipping school. This worked with his mother, nanny and teachers, but never with his father. Still, that was enough for the boy. As he grew older, Nate learned to make friends through his authority, family influence and even money. He gave lavish gifts and hosted spectacular birthday parties. Nate made sure everyone knew that being his friend was a coveted privilege. He craved being the centre of attention and saw himself as the centre of the universe. He certainly didn't want that to change. But now his familiar, comfortable world, where everything existed for him alone, was crumbling before his eyes. Nate hated it. Where did you get him from? Did you buy him? Couldn't you have gotten someone prettier? His forehead is strange, the child snapped, forgetting his manners. And he himself is strange. Nate, his father's voice rose. What are you doing? He gripped the child's shoulder firmly, showing his disapproval. Lorraine, however, quickly diffused the tension, explaining, We took Kyle from the orphanage. He had been living there since he lost his mum. Lost? Let him find her. Where did she go? Did she leave him? Nate fired off questions. Hearing this, the boy hunched further into himself. Nate noticed he was clutching something to his chest beneath his jacket. No, Nate. Kyle's mum didn't leave him. She was very ill, Lorraine explained, gently stroking the boy's hair to comfort him. But she loved him very much. That's why she made sure we found him. Nate didn't like his mother's behaviour either. An unfamiliar feeling stirred in his chest. Jealousy. He had never even let anyone touch his favourite toy car. And now his parents would have to share their attention. How could this be happening? Nate opened his mouth to say something cruel, something that would hurt this intruder. But suddenly, Kyle's expression changed. His eyes widened. He gasped in surprise, then offered a timid smile. He looked up at Lorraine. He's awake. Tom. Really? Lorraine brightened, bending down to the boy's level. Let's take him to the kitchen for something to eat. Does he like milk? We'll buy him proper food later. The boy nodded and unzipped his sweater. Nate finally saw what his new brother had been hiding. A kitten pressed against his chest, as scruffy as its owner. A ginger thing with a crooked nose and messy fur. What a freak, Nate pronounced his judgment. And I have my own pony. His name is Peanut, and he's very handsome. Kyle looked confused, while Nate's father fixed his son with a stern look. Nate, go to your room. We need to have a serious talk, the man declared. Only then did Nate realize he had gone too far. Serious talks with his father never ended well. His father was patient, yet everything had its limits. The boy looked hopefully at his mother, expecting her usual protection from his father's lectures. But she had already wrapped an arm around Kyle and was leading him toward the kitchen, smiling and scratching the stray ginger kitten's ears, entirely ignoring her own son. Nate saw this as nothing less than betrayal. His father led him to the nursery and closed the door, To Nate's surprise, he didn't yell or scold. Instead, he gave his son a weary, stern look. "I'm asking you to be more tolerant and kind. You're not little anymore. You need to understand. You're fortunate, Nate, though you don't realize how much. You were born into a wealthy family where you wanted for nothing, where we fulfilled your every whim. Now, I think that was our mistake. Your mother and me, Nate, weren't always rich. Everything we have, we earned through hard work. That's why we, having missed out on childhood joys ourselves, were stunned by your arrival. We wanted to give you what we never had, a happy, comfortable, beautiful childhood. That's what your mother especially wanted." The man fell silent. Nate couldn't read his father's thoughts as he frowned pensively. Meanwhile, Donovan was lost in memories of a past life that now seemed impossibly distant, as if it belonged to different people, not him and Lorraine. They had known each other since childhood. That day, Donovan, the owner of battered knees, played hide-and-seek with his friends all over the village. The game was exciting and could last all day. Donovan knew he could not lose, because at stake was something important. The loser stood in front of the other players with his back to them, and they took turns kicking the ball, aiming at his soft spot. Donovan was afraid of losing, because just yesterday his father had come home in a bad mood and, having taken off his leather belt, punished him for something. Donovan did not remember what for. Yes, he was used to his father's antics. That's why he just refused to lose. Barely had Donovan run into an abandoned house, hoping to find shelter, when he heard someone crying. He met a girl there. How beautiful she was. The boy was even taken aback. Even the tears rolling down her cheeks didn't spoil her beauty. "Why are you crying here?" asked the boy. "The girls in the neighborhood are hurting me." Lorraine sniffed, her nose red. "They don't want to be friends with me, and they say bad and nasty things." "Why?" asked the boy, sincerely surprised, not understanding how such a nice girl could be treated this way. "I don't know. I recently came here with my mum, to Grandma. I wanted so much to find friends, but nobody likes me. I brought them some cookies my mum recommended. They said they were filthy and disgusting, and then they trampled them with their feet. But we worked so hard to bake them. Even Grandma helped, though it's hard for her to stand on her feet, and she's lying down more and more. And I know we don't have much money, but Mum bought the best butter for the cookies anyway, and they... The girl burst into tears again. "Let me be your friend," Donovan blurted out. The girl stopped crying in surprise. "You're a boy," she said with doubt. "So what?" He shrugged his shoulders. "I like cookies, though, and I also know how to jump rope. You like jump ropes, don't you?" The girl looked in astonishment at Donovan's face, and the boy looked into her blue eyes, catching himself not wanting to blink. Then he held out his dirty hand to her. "Well, shall we be friends? My name is Donovan." "I'm Lorraine." The girl smiled widely and shook the palm of her new friend. "And you can come with me to look at kittens? There are kittens down by the basement." The boy's heart instantly became warm, as if a kitten had already curled up there. Donovan did not yet know that at that moment he fell in love, once and for the rest of his life. Donovan lost at hide-and-seek. He went to look at the kittens and got caught. He had to endure humiliating and painful blows with a ball on his back. He ate standing up for a week, but it was worth it. He may not have won the game, but the day he took Lorraine's hand in his, the boy found his other half. He had found the person with whom he could go through all the hardships of life. Lorraine's life had not been easy. She had never known her father. Her mother gave birth to her before finishing her studies at the college. They lived in town while her mother had work, but then The woman was fired, replaced by a relative of the boss, and they moved to her grandmother's. Lorraine's grandmother was very ill, and her mother worked several jobs to support the family. Such a life exhausted her mother, who looked much older than her age, and soon she became frequently ill. Donovan soon realized why Lorraine was not loved by the girls. They were jealous that even in hand-me-down clothes from her mother's acquaintances, she looked much prettier than they did in new things. Boys were always looking at Lorraine. For example, Alex, who was admired by half the girls in the yard, would regularly park his bicycle at her entrance and offer to ride her around the village. Lorraine refused such attention, which wounded his ego. The girls who were in love with him grew even angrier at Lorraine, considering her an arrogant outsider. They called her a beggar, a fool, a tomboy. Lorraine, however, quickly accepted the situation. She had no time to worry about what the girls said behind her back. She helped her mother around the house and helped Grandma. And now she had Donovan, who became her best friend. That was enough. Donovan always supported Lorraine in difficult moments, standing up for her when needed. Donovan wasn't as popular as Alex. After all, his father was known for coming home staggering and drunk. Once he even fell into the flower bed and crushed Mrs. Brooks' bushes, and she screamed about it all over the entire street. However, Donovan had grown a thick skin to other people's laughter, so he didn't care about people's chatter or mocking, just like Lorraine. For a long time, there were just the two of them, Donovan and Lorraine. However, in 7th grade, Wendy entered their lives. Wendy was an extraordinary girl. She was a policeman's daughter who could not tolerate injustice and refused to turn a blind eye to others' misdeeds. One day, before Wendy's eyes, 2 mean girls pushed Lorraine in the back, taking advantage of her faithful knight Donovan's absence due to chickenpox. Lorraine fell down. Her things scattered across the floor. The girls laughed, not noticing how Wendy's face turned purple with anger. To Lorraine's astonishment, Wendy furiously confronted her tormentors, forcing them to collect all the notebooks and pens, and even apologized to her classmate. Since that memorable day, there have been 3 of them. Wendy was a boisterous, emotional, and very cheerful girl. She loved sports and brought the school many awards and medals. Like her father, she dreamed of becoming a policewoman. This passion continued until her last year at school. That pitiful day, during a lesson, a policeman came to the school. He and the principal entered their classroom. The principal, pale-faced, looked around at the children and spotted Wendy, who had fallen asleep at the last desk. "Wendy, let's go." "Let's go, dear," she mumbled. Wendy was surprised to hear such a gentle tone from the usually angry and grumpy principal. The girl followed the woman and the man in uniform out of the classroom. She did not return. After the lessons, Donovan and Lorraine gathered their friends' things, took her backpack, and hurried to her apartment. Wendy's crying mother opened the door. "We brought Wendy's things. What happened?" Dinah gasped. "Thank you, darlings." She wiped her face with her palms. Wendy's in her room. Our daddy's gone today. He died in the service. You should go see her. She won't talk to me. She just lies on her bed, silent." Of course, Donovan and Lorraine tried to comfort their friend, but no words or hugs could help her. Wendy idolized her father. He was her hero, her role model. It was as if she had lost everything she believed in. When Donovan and Lorraine, devastated, left their classmate's house, Lorraine sat down on a bench and whispered, "But Donovan, I was so jealous of her sometimes, that she had a good family, a father, a beautiful mum. Now I'm ashamed. Donovan sat next to Lorraine. It was no secret that these high school students had special feelings for each other, but they remained just friends, afraid of getting burned. They feared losing each other. Though Donovan increasingly showed his true feelings, Lorraine kept him at a distance. "I understand you. When I lost—" Donovan didn't continue. Lorraine nodded. She understood her friend perfectly. Donovan's father had died in the cold winter. Drunk, he had fallen asleep in a snowdrift and never woken up. "You know, when I lost my dad, I felt relieved, that's all. As awful as it was, it improved our life. My mum threw out all the bottles, opened the windows, even breathed better. She herself blossomed," admitted the boy. "And now looking at Wendy, I can't find the right words. I want to help, but there's no way. But she's strong, she'll cope. We'll be there to help." Lorraine leaned into Donovan's shoulder, swallowing hot tears. "I want my family to be different, complete, happy, for my children to have everything," she confessed her deepest wish. Donovan hugged her, pressed her close to his beating heart, and nodded. "It will be," he said, his tone making it sound like a promise. That day, as they sat silently on the bench, thinking about their friend and their own families, the young people realized how close they truly were. Sadly, they couldn't support Wendy for long. After her husband's death, her mother took her daughter and returned to their hometown, not even letting her finish her last year of school. For some time, the young people still corresponded. In one of her last letters, Wendy confessed to Donovan what she was ashamed of. "I was madly in love with you. I knew that you loved Lorraine. Everyone knew and saw it. And I also knew that Lorraine was too kind and wonderful. So I did the meanest thing. I told her how I felt about you, knowing she wouldn't date you to avoid hurting me. Now I'm filled with guilt. I think you two are meant for each other. Though I love you very much, I hope you will be happy." After that, Wendy stopped answering her friend's letters. Donovan gave up first, while Lorraine continued writing to her friend for much longer. She even invited Wendy to their wedding 5 years later. Lorraine searched for her friend on social networks when more years had passed, but unsuccessfully. And recently, Wendy found her on her own. The woman wrote to Lorraine, saying that she had only a short time left. She was ill and worried about her son, who would be left alone. "I have no one else to ask for help," Wendy confessed in hurried, choppy handwriting. "I realize how selfish it is to let you know about me only now. I know that you and Donovan are married. I read about you in the newspaper. You have your own business, a young son, a beautiful home. Maybe there's a corner in it for Kyle. Of course, I'm doing a bad thing by relying on your kindness, Lorraine, but I can't do otherwise. Kyle never knew his father. My husband died when he was still a baby, and now my little boy is going to lose his mother. I'm afraid for him, Lorraine. I beg you to save my boy." Lorraine cried as she read her school friend's letter. Sadly, the letter had taken too long to reach her, and she and Donovan couldn't say goodbye to Wendy. When they learned about their friend's final days, they were horrified. Their lives had taken such different paths. Donovan and Lorraine had attended the same economics college and started dating. After graduation, Donovan served in the army while Lorraine waited for him, and then they got married. Despite losing loved ones, they stayed together, building a successful trading company from scratch. Wendy, who had once shown such promise, seemed to have lost her way. She gave up her dream of becoming a police officer because her mother protested. "What are you doing? Do you want to end up like your father?" she scolded. Instead, Wendy enrolled in history, but she struggled to stay interested. As her mother cycled through relationships, Wendy grew weary and moved in with a friend. She began living recklessly, dropped out of school, and took a job as a waitress at a nightclub. There she met Eric, a DJ. Though not a bad person, after their wedding he developed a gambling problem and fell into debt. They would fight and separate, only to reconcile again. Wendy, still in love, forgave his mistakes and borrowed money to cover his debts, hoping he would change. When Wendy gave birth to Kyle, Eric disappeared for months before being found dead. While police ruled it an accident, Wendy suspected it was related to his debts. By then, everyone had distanced themselves. Her friends, her mother, and her stepfather. Wendy hadn't repaid her borrowed money, surviving on benefits while trying to work and care for her child. Things improved briefly when Kyle started attending kindergarten, but the peace didn't last. After a few quiet years, Wendy received a terminal diagnosis. That's when she wrote to her last remaining friends. They found Kyle in an orphanage, where he had been living for over a month. Upon hearing their names, he immediately brightened. "Mum often talked about you. Mum said you were real friends. She dreamed I would have friends like you," he told the couple. Kyle left the orphanage with Tom, a kitten he'd rescued from a dog attack during his first days there. The staff had given him a box and permission to care for the kitten in the yard, believing it would help him adjust. Donovan and Lorraine decided to take both Kyle and his furry companion. Besides, the couple liked Kyle very much. He turned out to be a calm, gentle, and thoughtful child. He was polite, grateful, and kind. Now, sitting in his son's room, Donovan reflected on everything and realized they'd made mistakes in their parenting. Their attempt to be perfect parents had resulted in Nate becoming spoiled and difficult, something that became especially apparent in contrast to Kyle. Kyle has endured more than most adults could bear, and he's still just a child, the man said, meeting his son's eyes. But I see he's still a good boy. I want you two to get along. Try to be a real brother to him, okay? He needs our support right now. He needs a family. And understand that his arrival won't change our relationship with you. Mum and I love you more than life itself. It's just that Kyle may need a little more of our attention now, including yours. Nate was furious. He wanted to stomp his feet, wave his arms, and throw a tantrum. But while he could get away with that in front of the nanny, his father would never tolerate such behavior. "All right," said the cunning child, deciding he would deal with his brother another way, stealthily. "I'll help him. I'll show him the playroom." Dad smiled, believing his son. He ruffled Nate's hair. "Thank you. That's mature of you," he praised. "I'm proud of you." When his father left, the boy glanced at the shelf of books. He realized who the child reminded him of. A hero from the books his mum used to read to him. Someone like Huck Finn or Oliver Twist, Muddy and Barefoot. Nate became even more convinced they couldn't be brothers. Much happened after that. Nate tried to get rid of his stepbrother, but it was futile. As a child, he broke his favourite toys, tore curtains, and spoiled food, blaming Kyle for it all. Babysitters and teachers believed him, scolding and punishing Kyle, much to Nate's delight. Strangely, Kyle never complained to his parents about his brother's antics or the punishments. This infuriated Nate even more. At school, Nate immediately turned everyone against his half-brother, spreading vicious rumours about his mother and father. But even that didn't work. Though everyone initially shunned Kyle like the plague, his charm, intelligence and athletic skills soon drew people to him. They flocked to the red-haired boy like moths to a flame. When girls discovered his artistic talent, they constantly surrounded him, begging for drawings. Nate, accustomed to people loving him for his money, couldn't comprehend what they saw in Kyle. His anger grew daily. Nate's relationship with the cat was no better. He despised the pet. As a child, he once dragged it to the second floor and tried to throw it down, having heard somewhere that cats always land on their feet and were resilient. The animal escaped, scratching the boy's hands. Later, Nate repeatedly tormented the cat, once even abandoning it outside the house. But Kyle searched all weekend and found Tom. As time passed, the stepbrothers grew into even more starker opposites. Kyle showed gratitude to Donovan and Lorraine for providing shelter and life opportunity. He strived to justify their trust, excelling in studies and sports, becoming a finalist in art competitions. Nate, meanwhile, embraced the golden youth lifestyle, surrounding himself with same fellow heirs. He refused to lift a finger towards achievement, showing no interest in work. He knew the family business would come to him eventually, so he focused on enjoying his youth. Aging Donovan worried about his son, considering sending him abroad for studies, but feared losing what little control he had. At least at home he could keep watch. He tried engaging Nate in work, but couldn't force him. After all, you can't drag someone to the office like a stubborn cow. On this particular day, Nate woke with a hangover from clubbing until dawn, only to find an unwelcome surprise at his door. Whenever the cat misbehaved, whether urinating in his slippers, clawing his belongings, or scratching him, it always ran to Kyle for protection. But Kyle wasn't home now, having left for an artists' competition in the capital, and Nate was going to get revenge on the cat. "I'll shave you bald," he hissed, narrowing his eyes as he approached the cat. But before reaching the pet, he heard a sound nearby. Turning around irritably, he froze. An unfamiliar, beautiful girl stood barefoot on the windowsill by the open window. Her blonde curls were gathered in a ponytail, though a few springs had escaped, framing her delicate features. Her blue eyes held a dreamy gaze, her full lips curved in a sensual Cupid's bow. A beauty mark graced her right cheek, just like Marilyn Monroe's. Nate whistled, forgetting the cat, much to its relief. "Oh my goodness, who are you?" he whispered, and noticed the rag in her hands and cleaning supplies on the windowsill. "A maid? I've never seen you before." The girl nodded in embarrassment and hurriedly climbed down from the windowsill. "Hello, my name is Amelia. I got a job a while ago." "You're still so young," he remarked. "Why do you have to clean other people's houses?" "I'm in my 3rd year at the college. It's vacation time, so I decided to get a part-time job. At first I wanted to waitress at a restaurant, but the place was already taken. But your mother, Mrs. Slater, was having dinner there that day, so she invited me to join you." "It's a sin for a pretty girl like you to work as a cleaner," Nate grinned, shoving his hands into his pockets. "Can't your parents buy you new dresses so you can enjoy college life?" "I don't have parents. I lived in an orphanage," the girl admitted, looking away. "So that's it. Well, yes, that's the way of my parents. They adore hiding some orphan under their wings. You can ask my stepbrother," hummed the young man. The girl looked at him with genuine bewilderment. Something stirred in the guy's soul. First of all, he liked her. So innocent, naive, no makeup, but still beautiful. Not like the girls he'd gotten used to. Those hung on Nate at clubs every night, bothering him unbearably. But he had never had such a girl in his collection. And the fact that she was an orphan, like Kyle, made something inside Nate's head swell. He could never get to Kyle, so why not play with another orphan? "You know what, Amelia? It's wonderful that you came to our house." He smirked and began to sneak up on the girl. She shrank back, sensing a catch. "I just need a personal maid. You can be sure I'm a good host." Nate touched Amelia's hair. "True, you'll have to wear a matching outfit, but I'm sure it will suit you." Mrs. Slater told me about the job. There was no talk of me becoming a personal maid, the girl said, taking a step back. You're not going to contradict me, are you? He raised his eyebrows. You think I can't lay you off? Amelia began to back away from the insistent guy. Suddenly, the cat got under her feet. The girl shrieked, her hands flailing as she tried to keep her balance. But she couldn't hold on and fell to the floor. She yelped at the pain in her tailbone, but immediately forgot about it when she heard the cracking and ringing. She had hit the huge vase that adorned the living room. It was now nothing but porcelain shards. Oh, that's too bad. The young man clucked his tongue as he looked at the shards. My mother adored that thing. It was given to her by our Chinese partner, who was wealthy, and it's worth as much as the wing of a jetliner. What era was that vase from? Sung dynasty, Ming, Qin, I don't even remember. It was an accident, Amelia wailed fearfully. She relentlessly tried to connect the shards with her trembling fingers, as if it made sense. Hey, don't worry so much. The young man appeared immediately. I'll help. Amelia didn't hear him, so Nate squatted down, took her by the chin, and turned her face to his, with difficulty taking his eyes from her plump lips to her watery eyes. Did you hear me? I told you to calm down. I can help you. I'll be all night in shining armour. Do you want that? Amelia swallowed. What are you talking about? Nate licked his lips. He took his hand away from the girl's skin, feeling his fingertips tingling. I'll take the blame. I'll tell my mother that I broke the vase myself. Or blame it on the ginger face. He nodded at the cat hiding under the table. Really? Amelia marvelled. But to lie! You can tell the truth. Nate waved his hands. But then you'll have to compensate for the cost of the vase. Something tells me that you don't have that much money. Thousands of dollars, my dear. You're willing to work for free for our family until you can pay off that debt? Huh? I don't mind, of course. Nate watched with pleasure as her blue eyes grew more fearful. How much? Amelia whispered. I don't know the exact amount, but if you like, ask my mother yourself. Should I call her? He pretended to get up. Amelia clutched at his arm, trapped. No, please, I don't have that kind of money. Then you agree to my help, clarified the self-confident man, raising his eyebrows. Amelia hesitated, but the sight of the shards made her nod. Nate smiled wider. That's fine. But don't get me wrong, I'm not Robin Hood or anything like that. I don't help for free even such pretty orphans as you. My silence has a price, but it's paltry compared to the price of Chinese porcelain. What price? Amelia blushed. Come with me on a date this Saturday. What do you say? Amelia was surprised by the offer. She thought that the strange young man would ask her to clean the room or something like that. But why? I liked you, Nate said, winking at her. So, one date and you can forget about the vase. Amelia nodded, grudgingly. She did not know how agreeing to a date with Nate would turn out. For the rest of the week, Amelia kept expecting Mrs. Slater to call her in and accuse her of breaking the vase. But Nate must have kept his word. Amelia faced no consequences. She wasn't even fired. On Saturday, Amelia found a dress and shoes in her room, along with a letter from Nate. In it, he called her a doll worthy of the finest outfit, and expressed how much he looked forward to meeting her. Amelia put on the gifted outfit and marvelled at her reflection. She looked like a French maid in a black dress with white ruffles. Amelia almost took off the dress, but thought better of it. Nothing. You'll get through this once, the girl convinced herself. Nate took her to the club to meet his friends. Amelia stoically endured all the rich boys' cruel jokes at her expense. They asked if she wanted to wipe drink stains from the table or wear a maid's costume like the go-go dancers and perform for them in a private room for money. She refused every drink Nate offered. "Fine, if you don't want cocktails, then drink juice," he insisted, forcing a glass into Amelia's hands. Had Amelia been more experienced with clubs, she would have been more careful. The loud music hammered her head, hookah smoke choked her, and strobe lights blinded her eyes. She drank the juice in one gulp, unaware that Nate's friends had added something cheering in it. While such stuff might only have an entertaining effect on those used to them, Amelia quickly became ill. She leaned her head against her date's shoulder. "I feel sick. I can't feel my limbs, and my heart is racing," she whispered in his ear. Nate smiled predatorily. "Shall I take you home?" he offered, and she nodded. Amelia had no memory of arriving at the mansion. Inside was silent. Lorraine and Donovan had left for a business meeting, and all the staff were away for the weekend. She and Nate were alone. He pulled her into the living room without bothering to turn on the lights. In her dazed state, Amelia didn't immediately realize Nate had started kissing her and putting his hands where they shouldn't be. She pushed him away with unsteady hands, stumbling backward. "What are you doing?" "Ending our date," he drawled. "What did you expect? A Chinese vase is worth just one night at the club? No, sweetheart, you'll have to do better than that. Didn't you realize?" Amelia shook her head as nausea overwhelmed her. "No, no," she whispered. "Don't you understand? I'm tired of playing games with you. Any girl at the club would have been happy to leave with me, but I chose you." He unzipped his fly. "Come on, pay up." Amelia, barely comprehending what was happening, began to cry. Suddenly Tom appeared and hissed at Nate. "Furry trash!" Nate shouted, kicking the cat. "Get out!" He moved toward Amelia again, but then came a click as the living room flooded with light. Nate blinked, wrinkling his nose. He didn't notice his brother at first. "What the hell is going on here?" Kyle demanded, looking from the sobbing girl to his stepbrother. "You're the last thing I need." Nate rolled his eyes. "What? Want to join in? Sorry, not today." "Nate, I've tolerated enough, but you've crossed the line," Kyle said. "Button your pants and go sleep it off." "How dare you talk to me like that?" Nate sneered. "You're nothing here. Don't you get it? This house is mine. It was never yours. Yours here is just dirt under your fingernails. You have no right to order me around." Kyle fixed his stepbrother with an icy stare. "I'm not ordering you around. I'm giving you sound advice out of kindness. You've lived with me all this time but never understood. I don't care about what you value. Money, fake friends, all that nonsense you love. Keep it. I want none of it, but I won't let you destroy anything else. You can ruin yourself alone. Leave the girl alone, you ungrateful brat, or I'll call the police. You can explain this situation to them." The threat worked. Nate didn't want trouble with authorities. His parents would bail him out, but at what cost? He was already under his father's supervision. "Whatever. You know what? Take her. I'm giving her to you. She's just a worthless orphan like you. You deserve each other," he spat. Nate slammed the door as he left. Tom emerged from hiding and rubbed against his master's legs. But Carl had no time for the pet. He rushed to the trembling girl. "Are you all right? What happened?" Gently, careful not to frighten her, he draped a plaid blanket from the sofa over her shoulders. She looked up, and Kyle caught his breath. He recognized her instantly. Those flaxen curls, cornflower blue eyes, the large mole they'd teased her about in the orphanage, calling it a fly on her cheek. "Amelia!" Kyle gasped. Amelia tried to focus, felt too ill. Kyle spent the whole night beside the girl, worrying about her and providing a basin when she needed. He kept reaching for the phone, considering calling an ambulance, but feared getting his parents involved. By morning, Amelia was feeling better. She finally saw the face of her saviour, red-haired with a scar on his forehead. "Kyle," the girl marvelled. "Could it be you?" Kyle and Amelia had met in an orphanage. Though Kyle stayed there for only a month, he formed a close bond with the girl. Through Amelia, he discovered his love for drawing. She taught him the basics, sharing stories of her artist grandfather. Kyle became Amelia's devoted friend. He took the blame when she tore a curtain, accepting punishment from an angry teacher. He even ate the carrots from her stew to spare her from scolding. Amelia, in turn, surrounded him with warmth and care. Kyle earned the scar on his forehead, defending Amelia from bullies. After someone reported smoking to the teacher, orphanage workers raided the rooms and confiscated hidden cigarettes. Amelia, who had been seen near the teacher, was blamed for telling, and the children began taunting her as a snitch. During the ensuing scuffle, as Kyle stood up for her, he was pushed and injured. However, his stay in the hospital somehow put an end to the bullying. Amelia worried deeply about her friend, but he simply smiled, content to have protected her. When Kyle's foster parents came for him, he wanted to ask them to take Amelia too, but she firmly refused. "Don't you dare! What if they change their mind about taking you? Be good and obedient. You'd better ask them to take Tom. I can't protect him from the older boys," she insisted. Kyle followed her wishes, though thoughts of Amelia haunted him afterward. Her face would sometimes appear in his artwork. Despite trying to find Amelia when he grew up, he couldn't locate her. And now they found themselves in the same house. Kyle knew he wouldn't let her go this time. When he found out what had happened to her, he became angry. "That vase is worthless," he told Amelia. "Nate always does this. He broke things as a child and blamed others or made them feel guilty. But he won't get away with it anymore. Don't fight over me." She shook her head. "I just want to forget about it." Though Kyle was furious, Amelia looked at his faded scar and knew that revenge wasn't worth it. She was simply happy to have found her childhood friend again. It seemed Nate would escape consequences, but he didn't suspect that Kyle hadn't forgiven him. While Kyle could forgive his brother's mistreatment of himself and tried to understand his feelings, he couldn't tolerate anyone hurting those close to him. Being the kind, sensitive man he was, Kyle wouldn't resort to violence or upset his foster parents, who loved even their difficult son. Instead, he devised a plan and involved his father. Donovan summoned Nate to his office and delivered the news. "I'm giving control of the business to someone more worthy, who has proven himself. To Kyle. You'll receive a modest sum, enough for a year. You can spend it, invest it in stocks or business, whatever you choose, but I'm done babysitting you." Nate was stunned, first disbelieving, then shocked. All his life he'd expected a bright future, but suddenly his world darkened. After that conversation, sitting alone in his room, Nate heard a knock on the door. It was Kyle. "I don't want the trading company. You know I'm interested in art," Kyle said. "I can help you, but you'll need to prove to Father that you're worthy to be his heir." "Why should I trust you?" Nate snapped. "Because we're brothers," Kyle grinned. "Whether you like it or not." Kyle extended his hand. After hesitating, Nate took it, their first brotherly handshake. Better late than never. Change didn't come quickly for Nate, but he worked on himself with his family's support. Eventually, he developed a genuine interest in business, becoming first Donovan's right-hand man and later inheriting the company. His parents' joy only grew when he found a wonderful bride. Amelia and Kyle married a few years later. He became an artist and gallery owner, while Amelia helped manage exhibitions and discover young talents worldwide. Though Kyle and Nate never became best friends, they remained brothers, whether they liked it or not. And brothers know how to forgive, support, and give chances. Many chances, if needed.